Good morning again. It's good to be with you all. For this morning, I have these beautiful words by Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh from his book, How to Love. And it's titled, Opening the Door. Once you know how to come home to yourself, then you can open your home to other people, because now you have something to offer. The other person has to do exactly the same thing if they are to have something to offer you. Otherwise, they will have nothing to share but their loneliness, sickness, and suffering. This can't help heal you at all. The other person has to heal themselves and get warm inside so that they will feel better, at ease, and can share their home with you. I also wanted to introduce, before we begin the service, a little recitation of the Quran for you. And I invite you just to be present to the Arabic. I won't translate the recitation. So if you'll just take a breath and invite in some presence. This is the first chapter of the Quran, and it is the prayer and chapter that is recited in every single prayer for Muslims. And it's called the opening, Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Amen. We end with Amen. Hey, good morning. Welcome. Hey, so I had a really cool opportunity to record something with Adrian. So we're actually going to show you a video today where Adrian and I are having a conversation talking about 2 holy months. So the first one is Lent, and it's one that Christians celebrate, but also have a UU Lent calendar. So you're going to learn a little bit about Adrian's experience with Lent. And then she asks me questions about the holy month of Ramadan, which is a special month for the Muslims, right? So for us, for the Muslim community, we have a month of fasting that's like 30 days long. And so you're going to get to hear a little bit about that. And then when the video is over, if you have any questions, any thoughts, I invite you to share, okay? So we'll go ahead and play it.
Good morning, Elizabeth. I am so glad that we are able to have a conversation today about our spiritual practices this time of year. I'm curious, what was it like for you the first time you were able to observe and participate in Ramadan? How old were you? What did it feel like?
It was 2001 in San Diego, and I was 14 years old the first time that I fasted the month of Ramadan. I felt a lot of emotions. I felt excited. I felt nervous to stay away from food and water, but I also felt that connection with community. Ramadan brings such a strong communal feeling. And I also felt really supported by my mom, who would wake up early in the morning to feed me the suhoor, morning meal. Adrian, what was your experience like growing up with Lent?
Thanks for asking. I grew up in an Irish Catholic family, and I don't remember not celebrating and observing Lent. My parents were kind of on the light side of it, though. We just went through like the minimum that needed to happen. I remember getting ashes on our forehead, and there being a lot of kids in school who would show up with ashes on their forehead. So there was kind of a solidarity that, hey, we're in this together. But there was also fish stick Fridays, right? All the Catholic kids in school on Fridays ate fish, or sometimes we were really lucky and we got to have pizza. I remember there being big fish fries at church. But I also felt maybe some shame and guilt when I was a kid that I was supposed to give up something to show that I believed. And I didn't always understand what that meant. And I felt maybe guilty or embarrassed that I had these things, and maybe a little mad sometimes that I had to give up, doing something or playing with something, or something else that I considered kind of a luxury, but also a joy in my life as a kid. Now, as an adult, I'm curious about your relationship with fasting and with Ramadan.
My relationship with fasting and Ramadan has definitely changed. I show myself a lot more grace and compassion now, and really try to check in with myself as to what it is my body needs. And I really aim for smaller, more consistent goals. I look for mentors, teachers that support a kind of fasting where one honors the body and our own individual experiences, instead of trying to put us into a one-size-fits-all. And yeah, I after a lot of experiences fasting since 2001, each Ramadan definitely looks different, but I still participate in the community events, go to our holidays, celebrations after Ramadan. There's still preparation ahead of the month of Ramadan. But I definitely spend it a lot more in an introverted way, leaning more into what is it that I as a person, I as Elizabeth need from this month, and how can I continue to feel more grateful for my life, for my existence. Yeah, it's definitely changed. Do you still engage with Lent now that you aren't a practicing Catholic?
Yes, even though I don't consider myself a practicing Catholic anymore, some of the aspects of Lent are really treasured in my heart. I appreciate the intentionality of starting each day with prayer, and the season of preparation that Lent is calls me to do that. Sometimes my prayer might be a walk in the woods. Sometimes it might be listening to a hymn or a song. Sometimes it might be a traditional prayer or a chant, which could be something as simple as, when I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. I do still give something up or abstain, but I don't think of it in that way. I often think of it in a way of simplifying my life, and decluttering my mind sometimes. One year, I remember I gave up Facebook, and I went, wow, I actually have time to read a book now. And fasting, yes, I do still fast. And I especially fast as it relates to my identity now as a UU, in trying to have like a vegan day, or at the very least a vegetarian day, and being really mindful of the impact of our foods, the sources of our foods, the sustainability of our foods, really helps me connect with my value of having interconnectedness.
Adrienne, what is something that you wish people would ask you about your experience with Lent?
Yes, the fourth pillar of Lent, I think isn't well known, or maybe it doesn't get talked about as much, but is giving alms or almsgiving. And that is a time to rededicate yourself to helping others. That can be in your time, in your talents, in your treasure. And I know sometimes we really get caught up on money and giving financially, and money is really helpful. But I think, what are little ways of offering loving kindness? Can you offer to help somebody, a neighbor with a chore? Or maybe you do have time to volunteer at your local shelter or school, ways that you can give back to your community and how that's anchored in your faith. What is something that you wish people would ask you about your experience with Ramadan?
I'd like to be asked a really open-ended question, like what has your experience been like fasting in the month of Ramadan? I mean, I've been fasting since I was 14 years old, and 2001 is a while back. So I have a lot of stories I can pull from and a lot of different aspects of this month that I can talk about. I think questions like this allow us to see just the depth and the human and the humanity of Muslims, because no fast looks the same for anyone. No fast is the same from year to year. We're human beings, we have bodies, and there's so much more to Ramadan than just abstention from food and water. And everybody has a different goal that they're working on. So yeah, a more open-ended question filled with a lot of curiosity.
This morning, I have a reading by the senior minister, Reverend Abi Janamanchi at Cedar Lane, which is in Maryland. And I actually took this from one of his sermons that you can find online. He preaches a lot about fasting in Ramadan. He's a Hindu Unitarian Universalist, and he had a Muslim father and a Hindu mother. So I encourage you to ask for his name. And I think this comes from one called Why I Still Fast in the Month of Ramadan. So it's just a little part. So he says, and I'm fasting as an act of faith. Now, I don't know why Ramadan is the act of faith that has endured in me over all these years, because I'm not a practicing Muslim. But I am still very invested in the rigor of Ramadan, and I suppose that might be it. The rigor is the act I still seek. A part of this is routine, but a part of this, I imagine, is like that basketball player who takes a shot beyond the three-point line with their team down by 2 points as the buzzer sounds and tries to get it back all at once. Now I know the ways in which I fall down gloriously in the face of my beliefs throughout the year. And yet, I wish to consider myself forgiven at least once each year. When I wake up early to pray and have a small meal at the sun breaking over the horizon, when I fast now, I feel closer to my faith than I feel before, and I'm performing it for no one but myself. In most instances, my friends and peers rarely know I'm fasting, or they often forget. To go about it in solitude is my preferred mode now, when nothing else matters but the month-long journey back to some spiritual center I've thought myself to be lacking or have found my way away from. And when the month ends, I don't return to a dedicated spiritual practice, and my life resumes as it normally does all other 11 months of the year. But as for as many days as it takes for the crescent moon to unsheathe itself, I will recite all of the old Hindu prayers I have skipped, and I will remind myself how to talk to a holy entity. I don't eat, sure, but the not eating has become the easy part, particularly as I've gotten older. To find the humility to imagine myself as small, minuscule, in the face of something much larger than me, that's the hard part. And for me, that has little to do with not eating and more with the knowing that you could eat at any time. that you have the ability and privilege to fill yourself to gorge, and you still choose not to. So I do this in the name of a faith that I am not a part of, and yet have felt at home in. And that makes the act both more complicated and more fulfilling.
I wish I had heard that before. Holy Day celebrations, a social need. Our brains are clocks. We can't help being aware of time. Like the non-human creatures around us, we are conscious of the sun and the moon and the changing seasons. We also have a sense of history within our own lives and those of our ancestors. Over centuries, ancient clans and tribes have talked to each other about their annual religious and cultural traditions, passing them from generation to generation. To this day, all peoples of the world share a human compulsion to mark religious milestones. The timing and the labels for holy days vary, but they have many of the same moral values and traditions. Most honor the courageous acts of their religious founders. People want to remember their cultural history and revere their ancestors. As a child brought up in Protestant Christian tradition, I had no awareness of other religions or cultures. We just had two holy days, Christmas and Easter. I am happy to be learning now about the broader world and the holy days of other cultures. I see how much we all have in common. I hope that identifying those shared practices and beliefs will promote peace instead of conflict. Many of us already have a vague sense of when or how non-Christian belief communities celebrate. How can we support our friends during these special days or months of the year? Some of you may already do this and have helpful ideas for the rest of us. These are my own New Year resolutions on reaching out. Know what celebrations or ceremonies are scheduled and how long they last. Ask friends to describe their ceremonies, their celebration rituals, and the history behind them. Ask if I can join them as a respectful and curious observer. Mark a calendar with names of friends and their religious events. Mail an appropriate greeting card or small gift when their celebration begins. I'm not sure how well I can carry out these ideas, but they seem worthwhile. I have also been realizing that a tradition or ritual I celebrate by myself does not feel as important when experienced in the company of others. I am reluctant to decorate the house or prepare special food just for myself. I resist reading the texts that are foundational to the event because I am not deeply religious. Perhaps some of you feel the same when grown children live too far away and you cannot join them to celebrate. The need for social connection can cause emptiness and melancholy during religious holidays. I also sense that a one-day event has less spiritual and emotional impact than a sustained religious practice that builds up over weeks before a culminating day of celebration. It would be a challenging and enriching experience for me to participate in one of the longer holy day preparations. If allowed to do such a thing, it would give me a deeper understanding of religious practices different from my own. Our sabbatical speaker, Elizabeth Valencia-Gutierrez, has experienced religious holy days associated with multiple faiths. Let us listen now as she shares her insights on holy days.
Good morning again. It's good to be with you all, and I'm grateful to Cynthia, to Adrian, who helped really enrich this service and You know, you think you know what the service is going to be, but then you're in it and you're like, do we really need a sermon? And that's kind of what's on my mind right now, thinking of the time. And Cynthia was also saying, I quoted you, you reminded us we can't help be aware of the time. And because I know you are always aware of the time, I do want to say it is 10:47 at the time of starting the sermon. And we hold that as part of also the work that we are doing to become multicultural communities. That time looks different in different communities, and that we don't have the same attachments to time. And so it's good to stretch. And so I invite you to bear with me as I truncate this sermon and figure out how to do it live. So Cynthia talked about kind of that outward focus that we do, right? And being present for others in that inclusion. But I want to focus now also on how do we bring it home so that we can be authentic when we are embracing and welcoming others. Because we live in a very white Christian-centered country, despite the history of indigenous religions and spirituality that form a part of the history of these lands, despite the diversity and multicultural life that surrounds every single one of us, we see a world around us that centers so much about the holidays around like November and December, right? We think of that as like holy time and holidays. Now there's a few others scattered, but there's something about that length of time from November to December that we really are attached to. But we know that students of different religions struggle getting their holidays acknowledged in their schools. And so we don't get to experience what it's like to not have Christian holidays as the default. And right now we have this beautiful opportunity to appreciate an abundance of holidays that are important to so many other communities right now in March through April, including some of us here who celebrate these in different ways. Last year, when I served as intern minister at All Souls Unitarian Church, I realized the opportunity we had around this time as well. And this opportunity that we have as Unitarian Universalists to really lift up and center these other holidays. So just a few of them happening or that have happened in the past few days or that are upcoming. The Festival of Colors, Holi, was on March 8th. This is a very important and beautiful, liberating holiday for our Hindu community. On March 21st, we have Nuruz, the New Year. It's a Persian holiday. We have Ramadan that begins for Muslims on March 22nd. Lent began February 22nd, and it goes through April 6th. Passover is on April 5th. We have Vaisakhi for our Sikh community. That is on April 14th. April 16th, we have Theravada New Year. This is 3 days of celebration for our Buddhist community. There's a lot of opportunities right now. And then we have Easter and Orthodox Easter that will join all of that. An opportunity to really dig into our own connections as we do that outward focused work. And so I wanted to open this conversation just enough to be able to dig a little deeper into what we connect with or have disconnected from, with the aim of finding more authentic connection ourselves to holidays, and thereby again be able to do that more authentically with others. I believe that we should be an outward focused faith. We should continue to show up for social justice causes. We should continue to stretch. We should continue to feel the discomfort. It's going to be exhausting. We should continue that. But I don't believe we should do this without inviting ourselves into the work authentically and in a way that honors our journeys, because we matter in existence too. And we've talked about change. We've talked about transitions. We've talked about doing this individually. We've talked about doing this in community. How do we let people who come into our spaces transition when they come here? How do we let people change? We've talked about the seeking that for many of us led us to a Unitarian community. We've talked about the seeking that we're still on a journey with. We're talking about hyphenated identities, what it means to be multi-faith. I know many of you here have identified with Christianity, and I don't know your stories. I don't know your wounds. I don't know your joys around Christian holidays. And if you grew up Jewish or Buddhist or humanist or atheist or agnostic, or like me, Muslim as well, I don't know your stories. But there's something that I've noticed in many of us, and that is this nostalgia that we often don't name. I had the gift of experiencing Ramadan from the young age of 14. Islam for me is really formative, and what this means is that it's embodied. It forms a part of my memories. I miss it. I miss community. No matter how distant I get from Abrahamic faiths at times as I wrestle, there's something that keeps me connected, and I can't get away from that. And a lot of that is because anything that happened when we were really young, up until our early 20s, just leaves that long imprint in our lives. Good, bad, painful, joyous. And many of you have these formative experiences in other faiths or spiritualities. So I want to invite you into a moment right now to pause and ask yourselves, what holidays have you connected with in the past that have been meaningful to you? And I always invite you to take a breath, because I know that this isn't easy. But bringing the body into that connection is really important, especially if it triggers pain. What holidays might you miss? And what about these holidays and the experiences surrounding these days did you connect with or wish you could connect with? Just a moment to invite some thoughts. And there doesn't have to be anything, right? There's also access to other things. We have Earth Day, International Women's Day. There's so many things we can tap into as well that we can connect with. Lent and Ramadan are two examples of holy months that, because they stretch and are so many days long, they offer an opportunity to be present in a particular spiritual state or to work towards a particular spiritual state. Many of us who've practiced these holy days know that it might take the whole month to reach the goal, to feel a moment of epiphany, to have a little jolting moment, that moment of connecting with everything. It might take the whole month. And so there is this opportunity that I really appreciate, talking with Adrienne about her experience, because for me, Ramadan is an opportunity to make space and quiet things down as much as possible, seeking to get something. Something that isn't known about Ramadan, though, is that Ramadan is not just an isolated month. It's not just these 30 days that Muslims fast or try to fast, whatever that experience is. It's very different for everyone. Muslims begin to look forward to this month many months in advance. There's preparation happening 2 months before Ramadan. In the month right now that the lunar calendar is in, it's called Sha'ban. Sha'ban is an opportunity to really start to prepare with fasting. And we use this time to really just get in the mindset. And so thinking of preparation and spiritual preparation is something that really inspired me wanting to talk about this today. And other things that might not be commonly known about Ramadan is women don't fast when they're on their periods. People with health problems where abstention from food and water will cause harm do not fast from food and water, so they participate in different ways. Travelers are discouraged from fasting due to the hardship of traveling. Kids aren't fasting, but you'll see that they want to do what their adults are doing. Still, though, the communal spirit that Ramadan brings with it is very connecting. It's very strong. You can feel it, even as an outsider. It's hard to miss that. And people of all ages want to jump in and connect with that communal energy. And Reverend Abi Janamanchi from Cedar Lane is someone I really love listening to, because I just appreciate so much how he uses this spiritual practice to further his own connection. I mean, you heard in that little bit how that's his opportunity to reconnect to Hindu prayers. It's kind of a weird you thing we do, right? This is how we do spirituality. And still he has such high regard and respect. And so again, this is an invitation to connect and to think of your stories, the stories of your ancestors, and what it is that holds meaning for you. And I wanted to also share that I, as a Latina, I, as a Muslim woman, as a Muslim Unitarian Universalist, I, as somebody who really digs deep into Buddhism, what I really want from people who want to ask me is to be at ease. I want you to be at ease when you talk to me about the things that I'm doing. I want you to be at ease because I want you to come from it from an authentic place, not from a place where it's hard for you, where it's inauthentic. I just want you to be curious and lean in your direction to hear stories so that you can hear things like, what has it been like to fast Ramadan with an eating disorder? Something that more and more we're talking about in the Muslim community. It's hard. So I've invited you to think of holidays that form a part of your formative experiences as you've heard more about experiences with Lent and Ramadan. And I wanted to connect it to Article 2. So you heard that Muslims prepare ahead of time before Ramadan even gets here. And you heard that Ramadan doesn't mean you're going to enter into a spiritual state that you want. You might achieve it at the end. You might achieve it a few times during the month. You might not achieve the thing you hope to achieve, but still we try. We aim for that self-examination, connection to the divine, the communal spirit, letting go of a few things. For some people, it's as simple as losing some pounds, right? Like there's such diversity. And I thought to myself, we're about to go through this major change as Unitarian Universalists with this Article 2, where we're changing words to customs that we've been used to, right? These principles that we've known in a different way. So how do we spiritually prepare ourselves for that? Is this the time to do some of that spiritual preparation work, to start to think of something like love at the center as something deeper than just this chart, or as something as, what is it going to mean? What is it going to mean for us? Well, I invite you to sit with those conversations with yourselves and with your families, with each other. How can we spiritually prepare for something that's coming, that's going to change us with the hope of deepening us to bring more inclusion, help us be better at being multicultural in our communities? And I think that some of these holidays offer some of that opportunity. You heard from Adrienne and the experiences that she's had. You heard from me that I shared that grace and compassion are a much larger goal for me now, because I've been so used to being told how a holiday like Ramadan should be observed. But Ramadan is a prescriptive holiday. The verse in the Quran that Muslims know as like the rule verse for Ramadan in English translates to this: "O faithful, fasting has been prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those who preceded you, in order that you may protect yourselves." One translation. But this word kutiba, prescribed for you, is the same word you would use if you went to the doctor. So Ramadan is a prescription for Muslims with, again, that kind of connection that Reverend Abi Janamanchi mentioned, that we fault all year. It's nice to know you have something that can help cleanse and purify, reconnect, disconnect, detach us, make more space, whatever that might be. Often I don't hear us get into these deep places of these holy days. So what does it mean for us to invite spiritual preparation in thinking of the changes that we're going to make as a faith? And how can we invite in connection and authenticity to the holidays that have been a part of our lives, our families, our ancestors? In that interfaith work that you're all doing and that you're continuing to do, I invite you to show up as your true selves, where you allow yourself again to do that outward work as you're focusing in, so that it doesn't feel so exhausting or another thing to check off the to-do list that makes us think that we're doing Unitarian Universalism right. I think we do Unitarian Universalism right when we take care of our own hearts and spirits.